So back then, over the past 100 years or so, there's been this abduction program, also known as the hybridization program.
Okay.
Where these extraterrestrials are taking humans and taking them up to the ship and then taking their genetic material, so their sperm or eggs, and then creating children out of them.
So you believe in these kind of things?
Let's just say I want to believe.
Welcome back to the Most News in the Morning. All this week we're bringing you a special series, In Search of Aliens. And today we're talking to a man who says he has made contact and says he's actually been abducted by aliens more than once. Space correspondent Miles O'Brien is here. I don't mean to make fun, but come on.
Well, that's actually not unusual. A lot of abductees have had the experience more than one time. We're talking about close encounters of the fourth kind. That's when a human is abducted by an alien. Now, before you scoff, Carol,
I'm sorry,
and tune this out, these people we talk to are not crazy people. The majority of the people who say this has happened to them do not have symptoms of mental illness. They are ordinary people who swear they have endured a most extraordinary encounter.
I was terrified. As soon as the sun went down, I knew they'd be there.
Jane Nelm says throughout her life she's had constant visitors, and not of this earth. She says it all started in 1973, when a brilliant white light appeared in her bedroom window one night.
As I pulled the drape aside, all of a sudden there were 5 beings, this tall, all around me.
Nelms has drawn what she remembers of her encounters. These are the 5 beings she says came in quickly that night and took her.
I could not move, couldn't do a thing, and I was trying to grab the railings to stop myself from being taken. They had total control.
She says they carried her to their ship outside, and one of them even spoke.
This is the being that talked to me. He said in a very monotoned voice, "Jane, it is your time to come." And I said, "I am not going anywhere." He said, "Why not you come with us?" I said, "Because people need me here on Earth. I have family, I have friends. It is your time to come now." So they took me, and I was on that ship, and it wasn't until 1993, when I was hypnotized, that I found out what they were doing.
Nelm says she didn't speak of that for years, until she met others at a support group near Dallas who claimed similar experiences. When she moved to Carrollton, Nelm says the aliens followed her and came to others. She remembers a frantic, frightening phone call from a neighbor.
She said 3 different types of beings came down the hallway, and the fans started reversing, lights were flashing, and there were these little balls of light just flying around everywhere. She said one of the beings was so tall it could hardly get through the door.
Nelm says those beings abducted her neighbor, just as they had her before. Why? She says for scientific research.
I know this is crazy, but this is what happens. They examined her. She said when she was on the ship, the mother ship, she said there were all kinds of different species of aliens. Some of them were wearing civilian clothes. She said some of them talked in other languages. She said the ones that came over to her and told her that they weren't going to harm her. They just wanted to do some examinations.
She says she confronted those same aliens that night and even has evidence they were here.
These are the fingerprints off of the car.
Nelm says these long, skinny markings are the alien's fingerprints that she dusted, and she has pictures as well.
This alien was in a fetal position as it tumbled through the window, through solid material. Here's his head and his eye socket. And this is one hand here, another hand here. It's almost like an X-ray.
Nelm says she had to overcome her fear, so she went right out and met them.
And I went out into the backyard, and I faced one of them, very tall, and in the dark he had really glowing eyes. And he was scanning. He was stood there. He was just scanning like this. Just like that. And he'd look up, and I was about 25 foot from him, and I said, "You don't scare me."
She says they left that night, but not for long. Courtney Lane, KLTV 7 News.
Right throughout my life I'd had a lot of strange and unusual experiences happen, and I'd also had UFO sightings with my family, so this whole subject was quite familiar to me, and it was something I wasn't afraid of. On this occasion I was taken on board craft as an 8-year-old child in my summer pajamas, and the regression began with me actually being in a very large white room, white walls with a white warm marble-like floor, and there were a whole variety of other children there. So there were several human children along with myself, but there were also species of greys and mixtures of species, what you might call also transgenic children. We were there to learn to communicate with each other, and this was all done through the mind, not verbally. On this occasion we were learning to communicate through playing games with the mind, so we could actually create, and this is quite hard for me to get my head around, but we were actually creating holograms in the air, which we would play with as children would play with physical toys. So that was a very interesting point, and I remember commenting on the colour of them, how bright and luminescent and complex the shapes were that we were creating. I was approached by one of the greys who asked me if I would like to meet another child. Said that I would. After a short while, 2 greys appeared through the doorway, and between them, at around about their head level, was a very vibrant, glowing ball of blue light. Roughly the size of a soccer ball, a little bit smaller than that. Upon seeing this light, I instantly became quite emotional and confused in my child's mind, because I recognized something about this light that I loved, and as a child I had no explanation for this. I had no explanation for how I could feel this instant relationship and rapport and love of a blue ball of light that I had no recollection of having seen before. The grey actually at this point asked me to look into his eyes, and he projected conveyed three streams of information to me. The first was just a simple one that this is a friend we want you to get to know, and we would like you to communicate with. Following this was a much deeper stream of information that conveyed to me the full future life of this child, and this conveyed at lightning speed, so my mind was filled with images and pictures and snippets of conversation, as if there was information fast forwarding into my brain and I was only registering very small pieces of it here and there. However, it was sufficient to engender in me quite a bit of confusion. I became tearful, I became concerned, and once again he then inserted the third level, which was simply, you will come to love this child, this soul will be your son one day, you will marry, you'll grow up and marry, and one day you'll have children, and one of these children will be inhabited by this soul. He referred to the blue ball of light as a source, point of energy. So in the same way that I can telepathically communicate with the extraterrestrials, this ball of light communicated with in the same way. So we played together for a while. It zoomed around the room with me chasing it. So we did a few of the normal things that a kid would try to do with a ball. And then very soon after that, the Greys came back, conveyed to me that they were very pleased with the way our meeting had gone, and told me that on future visits on board craft for right up to adulthood, I would continue to communicate meet with this ball of light, learn with it, and become very, very close with it. And I was told that I'd actually known this soul, this ball of light, since long before my incarnation in this life as Suzanne Hanson.
It was a cold November evening in 1975 when Travis Walton and a crew of 6 others were returning from working in the White Mountains of Arizona. What happened on their way home has become one of the best documented claims of alien abduction and a mystery that has remained unsolved to this day.
On film, they can be evil, friendly,
E.T.
or ready for a fight. In the 90s movie Fire in the Sky, aliens abduct a logger from Snowflake, Arizona, while the other crew members look on.
Travis, get out of there!
But this was no fictional close encounter for Travis Walton. The movie is based on his personal story.
What's it like for you to come back to these woods right off the road where the incident happened?
The 6 other crew members witnessed the abduction. John Goulet was one of them.
To be back out here again like this, that makes me kind of scared now.
And you said you saw Travis lifted up in it.
When I turned my head, he was crouched down like this, and when I looked back, he was kind of spread out.
Fearing for their own lives, the men fled. They returned to the site later that night to find no sign of Travis. A massive search and investigation followed.
When he didn't show up after the first 2 or 3 days, we scheduled polygraph examinations for the other individuals who were in the work group, and they all passed.
Has this event, this single event that happened when you were 22, defined your life?
Yeah, it defined my life for me, regrettably. If I had it to do over again, I'd never get out of the truck. I'd rather it never happened.
Back in the book segment tonight, according to a Fox News Opinion Dynamics poll, 55% of the American public believes the government is likely withholding information about UFOs. And 24% of Americans believe aliens have actually visited this planet. In the Czech Republic, according to a 1999 poll, 62% believe extraterrestrials exist, more than believe in God. Czech Republic. Joining us now from Houston are 2 American believers, Donna and Clayton Lee. Okay, according to the notes that I have here, both of you say that you were abducted by aliens. Now, Donna, when people hear that, their first reaction is that you're a nut, all right? And, I mean, do you want people to know that? I mean, why not just keep it to yourself?
Oh, God, how can you keep something like that forever to yourself? People have reactions. Some people relate because they know that they've been contacted as well. And people that think we're nuts, or it's okay. You know, I don't want, it's not important that they believe that I was abducted because I know that I was.
Yeah, and the hardest thing for people that have gone through this is not being able to tell anybody. And the last thing somebody that has experienced these type of things wants to do is go on national TV on the #1 news show and talk about it.
So why are you doing it?
There are people out there right now that just think they're losing their minds, and that's why we're going on to tell them that this does happen to normal people, people that live normal lives, and there are people you can contact to talk with, and you don't have to be alone.
All right. And do you guys market this? Do you go speak about it or make money from it at all?
No, we don't.
Nothing like that. So you're basically just doing the program tonight, even though you know you're going to be disparaged and people are going to make fun of you. You know, they are. I mean, we all know that. But you're doing it to try to say to other people who have experienced what you've experienced that they shouldn't be ashamed. See, I wouldn't advise anybody to do what you do. I mean, I'm happy to talk to you. But I would advise people to do this because their life becomes very difficult, especially if they're working in a corporation or some people just think they're nuts.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true. That's true. Neither one of us work in a corporation.
Yeah, you're both independent. You can do and say what you want, but if you were in the straight world, woof.
Now, the people that are being taken, do they know anything about this? That their DNA and their genetic materials being taken at the time?
A lot of people, one of the things that they do is they have actually screen memories over, like overlaid over their actual experiences so that they forget. But there's always kind of like a hint of it with dreams, remnants, or they might have physical things that come up, like they feel pregnant, or like their ovaries are aching, or physical things.
It's like a phantom pregnancy that's mirroring what's happening on a craft or spaceship or something. So isn't that like kind of a bit non-consensual?
It is in like a human way, like from a human perspective it is. Yeah. But the thing that's interesting is taking it a step further with the ETs is they're actually from another perspective us. So a viewer of other incarnations.
Oh, okay. Could you explain on that a bit further?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's many incarnations that we have, so you could say like past lives or something, right? Yeah. So these they're called the Greys or the Zeta Reticuli, the ones that take us. They're actually a future or parallel incarnation of us as humans.
Okay, so are they trying to create themselves, or is that why are they doing it basically?
Kind of so. So in their civilization, picture us as humans right now, destroying our world, genetically modifying like ourselves and our foods and all these different things. And finally, we get to the point where we can't reproduce, and we get to the point where we've destroyed our planet. So that's what they've done. And so at a certain point, they can't reproduce, and they've destroyed their planet, and they're like, oh no, we're going to become extinct. So what can we do? Let's go back to a version of us before we screwed all this up.
So they're kind of from they're us in the future then? They're not from like planet Mars or something like that? No.
The underlying pattern is people telling the truth.
Right, and these people don't want this to be true. I mean, they sometimes will come to me and want me to make it go away and give them a pill, and when they find other people are having the same experiences, they become shocked and tremble, and it freaks them out.
They really want you to explain it away, and in fact you can't. All right, we've had hundreds of calls, and all recounting similar experiences. We'll kick off with Ros from Essex. Good morning, Ros.
Good morning.
Good morning. Something happened to you in 1983.
That's right, yes. Me and my boyfriend was driving along, and the car actually stopped. It was stopped by this UFO. I was taken aboard the thing.
Hang on, it came a bit too fast. How do you mean it was stopped? Do you mean something came in front of the car?
No, the car actually just conked out. The lights went out. It just ground to a halt. It had all the... It felt like it'd run out of petrol or something.
Yeah, and you were taken aboard?
I was taken aboard the ship. They told me that by telepathy that their world and their race is dying, and they need to find other genetic material, and would I mind helping them with their experiments.
It's like Bob a Job Week, isn't it? You know.
To which you said, thank you very much, but can I go home, please?
Basically, yes, I did.
So what happened to you?
They did various experiments, and the upshot at the end of it is that I can't have children anymore, and it's completely ruined my life. I spent 10 years trying to prove that it was not, and it did not happen. I went to doctors, I got medical things, I eventually found out about a UFO society. In those days it didn't exist, you weren't allowed to talk about this kind of thing.
What did they look like, Ros?
They were about 3'6", very large heads, very large eyes, slit for a nose, slit for a mouth, no ears.
Were you terrified?
I was absolutely petrified, yes. And it was a case of whether I liked it or not, they were going to do this. And I lost 2.5 hours out of my life, and I spent 10 years trying to get it back.
Is this part of the experiences in your book, that people can actually find themselves genuinely traumatised, and in some cases physically, severely traumatised by an experience?
This is very common that they are traumatized in this way. The whole story is a very familiar one, and it's this dense pattern of familiar experiences over and over and over again that convinced me that there was something powerful going on. I wanted to ask her, Ros, did you have, was there anything about ourselves that the beings communicated to you? They talked about their own race, but what about us? Was there any information about us?
Yes, we are going exactly the same way as they are. Our planet.
So what was did they tell you anything about the point of the two species coming together like this?
Yes, basically if they combine the two, then both species can continue as one.
You see, that's a very important point, because people, what are they up to, or what are we doing, or it's about us. What she's saying is that this is some connecting. We don't know who's managing this whole show anyway. I mean, who are the handlers for both of us, you know, but it is a bringing together which is serving perhaps the needs of both species in some evolutionary way.
How advanced are these people? Where are they from? Who are they? Or are they extraterrestrials? Are they time travelers? Are they us in some way, as some people, in my view, compellingly claim? Do you know what the score is here? And what's the relationship between them and the other extraterrestrial races that you must have heard about?
Yes. The other question was, you know, what kind of a scale are we looking at as far as time is concerned? Now, it is my understanding, again, from what they've shared with me on board that craft, that they have been here since the beginning of the Earth, and that they had a hand in creating humanity. That they too, as it was described to me by them, that they too seek to know God, meaning the creator of all that is, all that was, and all that will be. The creator of everything, the very beginning, the source of all things. So they were given a task. It's like saying, you know, whatever your job is, when you get up in the morning and you go to work, that's what your job is. That's what you know that you do. Well, when we are here on Earth, it is no different than for them than to say that this is what they do. They are the caretakers of the Earth, and this is what they've always done. As far as what timeline they're from, it was also described to me that some of them are from our past, our present, and our future. Because the way that time was described to me, they did have the ability to go back and forth and in the present. They did have that ability. How? You'd have to ask them that, because I have no idea. But they also said that some of them were physical, that they were no different than you or I, that they lived on the earth, that they did live under the earth, inside the earth, that there were others that were interdimensional beings, and there were others on different planets, that all of them were created for the same task in these different areas, and they all had the ability to communicate with one another, and it was like saying that they were cousins. So it's a very complicated question to answer because it is so complicated to explain. It's almost beyond my words to be able to clarify it.
So they're actually us. So it is consensual in the way that it is another version of us coming back to us to not only like help, you know, themselves, but to help us. So they're actually us. So it is consensual in the way that it is another version of us coming back to us to not only like help, you know, themselves, but to help us. So on the ships, they're actually teaching us about how we can awaken, how we can, you know, change our world and do better things with humanity. And then also these kids coming are bringing all of this light and all of this this pure energy and this higher frequency for us to awaken.
So how did it start with you?
How did it start with me? It started with me when I started doing a bunch of healing work.
Okay.
So I was doing, I was working with angels and ghosts and other lives and all these kind of things. And one of the things that kept coming up was this concept of abduction.
Yeah.
And then all of these abductees started coming to me and telling me their stories, and I'm like, this is real! Like, these people actually think that they were taken. And I was thinking that it wasn't me the whole time. And then finally, over time, like, these memories started to come up for me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of this. Of course, that's why it's coming up.
Yeah. So, when did you think they start when they took you, all your genetic material?
Well, the biggest, like, memory unlocker was a regression that I did.
Okay.
With Barbara Lamb, and she's one of the top ET regressors in the world, and and all of my memories like just came flooding back from that. And so it started when I was about age 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why particularly you? Why not the person in the next house down the street?
They take, well, it could be the person in the next house.
Yeah, of course. It could be the whole street.
Right. Everywhere we're going. Yeah. They take genetic lines.
Oh,
so
okay.
they've taken my dad, they took my grandma, so they take certain genetic lines and lineages. So they're always working usually in the families.
Yeah. But why do they choose these particular families?
The genetics, so the energetic structure of that certain family line, as well as the physical genetics that they're looking for, and also the soul contracts that these family lineages have to participate in this other way.
A soul contract. Explain. So it sounds quite
serious.
Sinister.
Yeah. Well, it's actually like it's sweet. Like, it's when we come into this body, when we incarnate. We go like, what do we want to experience? What are the things we want to explore in this life?
And someone in your family said, "Yeah, put me down for alien kidnap." Sort of
right. Well, kind of so, in the way that like that incarnation is going, I want to explore the idea of multidimensionality. I want to experience the idea of working with something beyond just a human level. Like, some incarnations might be like, I just want to explore the theme of being a housewife or a slave or something like that. And these incarnations are going, I want to explore, extraterrestrial and galactic family connections and merge those two realities and work interdimensionally. So it's just a different kind of life.
Και από εκεί τώρα έχουμε διασταύρωση γήινων με εξωγήινων.
Μπορεί
να αφήσουν εμφύτευμα δηλαδή μέσα.
Να αφήσουν έμβριο. Γενετικό υλικό. Γενετικό υλικό. Ένα γενετικό υλικό το οποίο μπαίνει μέσα και στους 3 μήνες γίνεται κανονικά.
Και στους 3 μήνες γίνεται κανονικά το παιδί.
Η έξοδος, ας πούμε.
Η έξοδος, σαν να είναι ένα μηνύτικο.
Ναι, εάν μοιάζει παραμένει στη γη. Εάν δεν μοιάζει γίνεται απαγωγή και πηγαίνει πάνω.
So you're 3 years old, they take you. So how did it progress from that to children? And can you talk about the child experience and all that stuff? Okay.
So with my generation, because this kind of goes to the question you were just asking, my generation, it was a lot more positive. So there were experiences on these spaceships. They were like super exciting and fun, and I was always excited to go.
Yeah.
And it's similar with my generation, but the generations back, these greys, they didn't have the emotional capacity as humans do. So they didn't know how to treat us. And so a lot of people had very terrifying experiences, or that it was like physically hurtful in ways. But then by the time they got to my generation and me, it was a lot more exciting.
Hi everybody, my name is Jeremy Corbell. I'm an investigative filmmaker. I like to say I'm an accidental filmmaker because I did not expect to be making films, especially on these subjects. My mentor is George Knapp. George Knapp, as you all know, broke the Area 51 and Bob Lazar story. Yeah, he's awesome. I feel very grateful for his mentorship, especially when looking into these subjects which are deep down the rabbit hole. My original films were just looking at whistleblowers. My relationship with George, I got to know Bob Lazar. His story, I think, is profound and it's important. After working with some of these people within the United States military who were scientists, I started to find that a lot of the scientists who are working on cutting-edge materials and cutting-edge sciences had experiences that they wouldn't tell each other, but they would tell some weird guy with tattoos and a beard and a camera. So I find myself kind of delving deeper and deeper into this function of reality where we all know that there are lights in the sky, there are craft that fly with impunity through our airspace. It's posed a huge problem for every military on the planet, but that is the tip of the iceberg. The phenomenon itself, that's theater, that's a show. There seems to be a lot more going on. So my first jump into this realm of abduction, which was very foreign to me, didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole because it was confusing to me. I had no background in it. I'm the least qualified person to ask. But Dr. Roger Lear came to me just prior to his death, said, "I'd really want you to make a film about my work." And I said, "Are you sure? Because I'm gonna tell the truth." And he says, "I've been doing this for 25, 30 years. There's something to it, Jeremy. You gotta film this." And so I said, okay. So I filmed his last alleged alien implant removal surgery. But the funniest thing happened, which is that, I'm watching this thing get cut out of a guy, this Gauss meter's going off, everybody's analyzing it. I actually ended up getting isotopic and elemental analysis on it when Dr. Lear passed away because there was no one else to do it. But what happened was, I found a very credible individual with an incredible story. I call him Patient 17, just to keep his anonymity. He does not want the limelight. Here's a guy, construction worker, 6'7", just a megalith of a guy, and he's just a cowboy. Smart guy, but he's just a straightforward, straight shooter. And he's telling me, "I don't know about this implant stuff. I don't know if this has anything to do with my experiences," he says, "but I have had abductive experiences." And he explains them in my film in detail. And the thing that really struck me, because everybody has a different experience. Some people believe it's a benevolent thing. Other people think it's malevolent. But essentially, he called them alien gangsters. He said, "I don't give them an invitation, have them over for pizza and a beer. They come in, they take me." So he explained those experiences in private to me, and that's why he endured this surgery, because in fact this alloy was very, very strange, which you'll see in my film. But primarily, I'm a filmmaker. I try to find credible individuals with incredible stories. That's why my whole site is called extraordinarybeliefs.com. What I try to do is look at these things objectively, try to find evidence, and see if there's any meat to it. And I no longer have the luxury of disbelief. We are being visited by whom we don't know, what they want we don't know. A lot of us think we know. But remember, there's 3 layers of deception to this, at least. First layer of deception is the visitors themselves, if in fact they are visiting from somewhere else. Second layer of deception is the intelligence community, and that's been said to me by people I work with in the intelligence community. Disinformation. And the third layer of deception, unfortunately, is ourselves. All we can do is take the experiences we have and try to fit them in the box we have at that current time. Anyway, the point is, it's a confusing game. There is a phenomenon. We're all trying to figure out what it is. If you think you know the answer, step back. The world is much bigger than it appears. So I find it absolutely fascinating. And that's my goal, is to shine a light on this with integrity and also uplift the visual medium. So I hope you like the films, and I'd like to learn more. But anyway, that's basically why I'm here.
Good, thank you, and it's very informative what you do. Jeremy pushed the films because they're fantastic.
Oh, thanks, man, I appreciate that. You'll know if you watch them. Just very simple. Go to extraordinarybeliefs.com. All of my investigative work is on there. There's just so much free content, but get the films. That's what allows me to continue going, and they're in-depth investigations. I'll shock you, I hope.
Fantastic.
All right.
Και εμφυτεύματα, το Γιώργο, τα εμφυτεύματα είναι ενεργειακά εμφυτεύματα, τελείως άλλα εμφυτεύματα, αυτά δεν μπορούν να βγουν. Εμφυτεύματα, άλλα τα εκείνα τα οποία συζητάμε για εμφυτεύματα, είναι από υλικό το οποίο δεν είναι υγιεινό. Δηλαδή δεν υπάρχουν, το υλικό αυτό δεν το βλέπουμε στη γη. Δεν είναι από τα υλικά τα οποία είναι γνωστά.
Εδώ είναι 2 φωτογραφίες από εμφυτεύματα, από αυτά που τοποθετούν μέσα τα εμφυτεύματα.
Από αυτά που τοποθετούν
τα μικροτσίπ και λοιπά, από ακνογραφίες.
Λοιπόν, ορίστε, εδώ. Συγγνώμη, εγώ φταίω.
Στην δεξιά φωτογραφία, που είναι το χέρι, σε ακτινογραφία, διότι πόναγε εκεί πέρα. Και πήγε σε ακτινογραφία να δει γιατί πονάει. Και έτσι βρήκε το εμφύτευμα.
Και έτσι βρέθηκε αυτό το...
Μάλιστα. Και να δείξουμε και το άλλο. Τα άλλα τι είναι?
Εμφυτεύματα.
Πάλι το ίδιο εμφυτεύματα και σε διάφορα σημεία, στα άκρα συνήθως. Αυτά είναι στα άκρα.
Λοιπόν, εσείς είστε ο μόνος εξοικειωμένος με όλα αυτά. Τώρα θα παρακολουθήσουμε όλοι μαζί, Γιώργο, σε άλλο επίπεδο από την εμπειρία τη δική σου, τη μαρτυρία μιας γυναίκας, όπου το 1991 η γυναίκα αυτή βεβαίως δεν θα δείξει το πρόσωπό της και δεν θέλει. Είναι και μάλιστα σύζυγος ανθρώπου έτσι υψηλά στην ιεραρχία στη χώρα μας και επομένως για ευνόητους λόγους θα χρειαστεί να μην φανεί ποια είναι. Ομολογεί στο βίντεο που θα δούμε την ιστορία που έχει ζήσει. Ήταν μια μέρα στο μπαλκόνι του ξενοδοχείου όπου διέμενε, ένα τεράστιο φως εμφανίστηκε, λιποθύμησε. Από εκεί και πέρα είδε τον εαυτό της σε ένα κάτασπρο δωμάτιο με έναν εξωγήινο, ο οποίος της μιλούσε σε μια γλώσσα που βέβαια δεν μπορούσε να κατανοήσει. Τελικά άρχισαν να επικοινωνούν μέσω τηλεπάθειας. Και τα υπόλοιπα δούμε τι μας λέει, προσπαθώντας να θυμηθεί και μας περιγράφει την εμπειρία λεπτό προς λεπτό. Υποπτεύεται ότι τις έκαναν και κάποιες ιατρικές εξετάσεις προκειμένου να δουν πώς λειτουργεί το ανθρώπινο σώμα. Εκεί θα θέλουμε κάποιες εξηγήσεις. Ας ακούσουμε.
Ξέρετε, η πιο απλή αλλά πιο δύσκολο τρόπος επικοινωνίας είναι η τηλεπάθεια.
Μάλιστα.
Γιατί
υπάρχουν
με
και
τηλεπάθεια. Όχι, αυτή τη στιγμή ξέρουμε μόνο τηλεπαθητικούς.
Μάλιστα. Ναι.
Λέω η πιο απλή γιατί δίνεις εικόνες. Δείχνεις εικόνες στον άλλον. Και μιλάς με εικόνες.
Και έτσι καταλαβαίνεις.
Και έτσι μπορείς να καταλάβεις, δεν υπάρχει γλώσσα, υπάρχει εικόνα. Άρα βλέπεις.
I had a strange sensation came over me, but initially it was like driving through an earthquake. It was like the car was just started vibrating and it was like the earth was shaking and maybe the earth was shaking. But to me it just felt like the car was vibrating. And then it was like a ton of concrete had been dumped on me. I was just pushed into the seat and frozen. I couldn't steer the car, I couldn't apply the brakes. And unfortunately, the road isn't very straight, and eventually I was confronted with the car hurtling along at perhaps 100 kilometres an hour or more, and a cliff face confronted me, and I couldn't use the steering wheel or the brakes. And suddenly, I wasn't in Kansas anymore. This is why I didn't pack for the trip. Now, as Duncan has alluded, I had no extraterrestrial ET, UFO experiences, so I had nothing that would alert me to this being something in an ET range of events. This, to me, was death. I had crashed the car, I was dead, I didn't have a body when I looked down, and I wasn't in a place that had any reality that we could relate to in our world. I was truly in no man's land. Now, obviously, I was in a state of limbo. I don't know for how long. It could have been, I was even advised that it was probably about a day of Earth time while I was acclimatizing to this non-physical reality. Now, when I did begin to focus, it was like being on an ice skating rink, lit from below, and in the far distance I could see a glowing neon light effect. It was rotating, but it sort of kind of looked like a neon light blinking on and off. Now, the interesting thing was, not having a body, but I had my consciousness because I was fully aware. I was fully aware of thinking about the situation and analysing it. Why was I here? What was I doing here? And how could I either get out of the situation or how could I at least move to investigate further? I had to teach myself how to move without legs or even arms. And the interesting thing was that after contemplating it for a while, I just found by pushing forward with what would have been my head, or in this case perhaps my consciousness, I could guide myself in the direction that I wanted to go. So that's your first crash course in when you get to Barry Eaton's situation, of how to move around in the afterlife. Okay, so now, interesting thing, I was just getting familiar with this, and in the non-physical I felt a tap on the shoulder. And turning around, I saw two other ghost-like entities standing behind me. Now, there was no communication that I could describe as communication. It was a sense of the things to do. And as I followed these other entities out of this area of non-physicality, I might say, I started to see technology that looked a little familiar, like Earth machinery. Now, I was escorted, there's still no real communication, but I was escorted to strange glass-like tube device. And even though, once again, there didn't seem to be any instructions, it felt perfectly normal and natural and the right thing to do that I should step into this glass-type crystal device. One might think I'd been here before and done it before, and this was actually old hat, and it could be so, but I had no recollection of a previous experience, except that there was no fear involved, and the intuitive steps that I was taking felt well rehearsed and within my own comfort zone. Now, the interesting thing while inside this glass tube was they seemed to manufacture a body for me, because I can remember looking down inside this device and seeing my rib cage being formed. Now, that wasn't all they were making for me when they were building a body. We seemed to have adopted, even though my body looked to be similar, I was 40 years of age at that stage, similar body structure to what I'd had prior to the crash in the car, but it was now blue. And it was explained to me that with the blue body came an ability to interact. A communication device was built into the body, if you like. And that language was like something you could not imagine on this planet. There were no real words as such. We had a colour which was accompanied by a resonance, but the resonance was more like a song. They were singing to me in colour. And because all of this was internal, this was telepathic, obviously, even though I had never experienced it before to my memory, and I didn't realise what telepathy would be like, of course. I don't think many of us really do when it's full-blown. And accompanying these songs, these rhythms, these harmonic wavelengths, followed by the colour, which was just flowing through my head, were images. And because this was being deciphered for me automatically, it was just like speaking to you now or you speaking to me. I would know what you were saying automatically. I didn't have to interpret it. It was natural. It looks and sounds to be so confusing to have colours in your head and vibrations in your head and pictures in your head, but along with that experience, they could download so much information so quickly, and it was all perfectly natural.
Και εδώ τώρα, Γιώργο, έρχομαι σε σένα που λες ότι τι έχει γίνει στα μάτια σου εσένα για να μπορείς να έχεις όραση σε αυτό το επίπεδο του φωτός. Μου έχουν ρυθμίσει, μου έχουν κάνει κάποιες ρυθμίσεις στους οφθαλμούς στα μάτια, ναι, ώστε να μπορώ να κάνω ηλιοσκόπηση, δηλαδή μέσω σκαφών του ηλίου. Ναι. Ο καθένας μπορεί να βγάλει τα συμπεράσματά του ή να μην ασχοληθεί καθόλου με αυτό που λέω. Μέσω ηλιακών σκαφών. Σε τόσο δυνατό φως, λοιπόν. Σε τόσο δυνατό φως. Ναι. Έχουμε, δηλαδή, εναρμονίζομαι με τον πυρήνα του ηλίου, με αποτέλεσμα να βλέπω αυτό το οποίο υπάρχει πίσω από τον ήλιο και είναι κάποια ηλιακά σκάφη με τα οποία έχω επικοινωνία, ναι, και έχει να κάνει κυρίως με τη ροή πληροφοριών. Μάλιστα.
Looks and sounds to be so confusing to have colours in your head and vibrations in your head and pictures in your head, but along with that experience, they could download so much information so quickly, and it was all perfectly natural. Now, while all this was being explained to me, I was just so distracted with what was in my head, I didn't really take a lot of notice at who was communicating this information to me, or I don't recall it to this day anyway. But the next entity, or I would call him a person, it's a he, it, or a she, what was called an elder. Now, this was a very ancient person, if you like. The elders, I was told, lived for thousands of years. This was a member of an extraterrestrial race. The being that had been previously explaining what was happening to my body and what was happening with the interpretation of the internal telepathy was a hybrid of one of these elder races. Just confronting him. The energy he exuded from his body was so uplifting. I mean, I don't take drugs, but I should imagine that if I had a high on a drug of some description, that this was a very similar, it was a euphoric sensation. It gave you, I think, great courage. It made you feel well within yourself. It's almost impossible for me to describe the feeling that was emanating from this entity. It certainly wasn't fearful for me. And of course, if you think about that image, I might have been preconditioned from childhood with that memory, with that dream, to be confronted one day with this entity and not be afraid. Although it seemed to be impossible for me to be afraid with the beautiful energy that the entity was sending to me. There's been a phrase going around on the internet that we should wait for the arrival of the silent elders. Now, if any entity had little to say and was matter-of-fact about it and to the point, I would say the elders are very silent in the majority of their dealings. I only ever met them on the ship about 3 times or 2 or 3 times, and at each time the actual communication was minimal. But I have to say it was very strong, because he was introducing me now to what he would describe as a guide. This person was going to be my interactee for the rest of the journey. This person was one of the hybrid entities which you might wish to know, being exclusively bred to live on Earth. The elders as such, because of the state of our planet, the pollution of our planet, the gross sort of proliferation of magnetic and electricity, basically, and microwave electricity, and a lot of other pollutants on this planet, plus just the resonance of the place, makes it impossible for the elders to spend more than about 14 days on the planet, and they have to alternate. When they're here, they leave very quickly. But these hybrids are being built, if I could use that word, being bred, being built, being manufactured, being born to live on Earth. Now, this is a deal that's been going on for quite a while with some Earth governments, but we'll get to that all in good time.
Pero ahora vamos con el caso de Giovanna en Italia, una mujer que quedó embarazada de un supuesto contacto con seres extraterrestres, y vea usted lo que ocurrió. Verdaderamente impactó a toda Europa y muy especialmente a Italia. Max Schiaffino.
Se piensa que es ciencia ficción, una novela, pero el caso de Giovanna es impresionante por la cantidad de pruebas físicas, su testimonio y sobre todo un feto alienígena. Esta es la historia.
En la serie Misterio de la cadena 1 Mediaset, en julio de este año, se presentó La historia de Giovanna, una joven italiana de la región de Cerdeña, una historia no solo de contacto, sino de abducción. Todo comienza cuando tenía 4 años. Ahora tiene 41 años y habla por primera vez.
Recuerdo que era un disco volador que estaba flotando, de color metálico. No recuerdo cómo llegué adentro de él. Me veo flotando. Alrededor de mí hay 4 criaturas. Yo me veo sin ataduras. Me dicen que no me mueva.
¿Cómo te lo dicen?
Me lo dicen telepáticamente.
Ξέρετε, η πιο απλή αλλά πιο δύσκολο τρόπος επικοινωνίας είναι η τηλεπάθεια. Λέω η πιο απλή γιατί δίνεις εικόνες. Δείχνεις εικόνες στον άλλον και μιλάς με εικόνες.
Και έτσι καταλαβαίνεις.
Και έτσι μπορείς να καταλάβεις, δεν υπάρχει γλώσσα, υπάρχει εικόνα. Άρα βλέπεις.
Λοιπόν, είναι φοβερή η μαρτυρία της, για να την ακούσουμε.
Ακόμα και αν πιστεύει κάποιος στους εξωγήινους, δεν μπορεί να περιμένει ότι θα του συμβεί αυτό που μου συνέβη εμένα. Ήταν χειμώνας και αποφασίσαμε μια φίλη μου να πάμε στη Θεσσαλονίκη. Στο δρόμο σταματήσαμε στο Βόλο για να διανυκτερεύσουμε. Μόλις μπήκαμε στο δωμάτιο, ένιωσα ότι κάποιος με καλούσε προς τον μπαλκόνι. Ένιωσα την ανάγκη να βγω έξω, να δω ποιος είναι. Όταν βγήκα στο μπαλκόνι, ένιωσα ένα διάχυτο φως γύρω μου. Ήμουν σίγουρη ότι εκείνο το βράδυ δεν είχε φεγγάρι, το είχα προσέξει. Όμως ήταν όλα πάρα πολύ λαμπερά γύρω μου. Γύρισα τα μάτια μου προς τον ουρανό και είδα ένα πάρα πολύ έντονο φωτεινό σώμα. Όταν πέσαμε να κοιμηθούμε, ένιωσα πολύ έντονα την παρουσία κάποιου ανθρώπου στο δωμάτιο. Σηκώθηκα, βγήκα στο μπαλκόνι. Όταν έφτασα εκεί, βλέπω έναν τεράστιο όγκο, σκοτεινό, με πολλά φωτάκια γύρω του, να έρχεται κατά πάνω μου. Ήταν πολύ κοντά μου. Κόπηκε η αναπνοή μου από το φόβο. Νομίζω ότι εκεί λιποθύμησα. Το επόμενο πράγμα που θυμάμαι είναι τη φίλη μου να προσπαθεί να με ξυπνήσει. Κοιτάζω έξω από το παράθυρο, είχε ξημερώσει πια για τα καλά. Ένιωθα πάρα πολύ κουρασμένη, πηγαίνω προς τον καθρέφτη και βλέπω ότι είμαι γυμνή. Τα μάτια μου έτσουζαν, το κορμί μου το ένιωθα παράξενο να με τσούζει σε διάφορα σημεία και ψάχνοντας βρήκα κάποιες αμυχές. Κοίταξα τα μαλλιά μου, ήταν αλλιώτικα, ήταν σαν να είχα βάλει ζελέ, αλλά και στο κορμί μου είχα. Δεν ήξερα τι να σκεφτώ. Έμεινα μόνη μου μέσα στο μπάνιο και προσπαθούσα να σκεφτώ ψύχραιμα τι μου είχε συμβεί. Είχα σοκαριστεί. Από εκείνη τη νύχτα και στο εξής έβλεπα συνεχώς εφιάλτες. Μετά από πολύ καιρό και αφού είχα επιστρέψει στην Αθήνα, έτυχε να δω στην τηλεόραση ένα ντοκιμαντέρ για τα UFO και τους εξωγήινους. Όταν άκουσα στο ντοκιμαντέρ για τις απαγωγές που έχουν γίνει, έπαθα πραγματικά ιστερία. Συνειδητοποίησα ότι δεν είχα λιποθυμήσει τελικά εκείνο το βράδυ. Είχα μεταφερθεί σε έναν άλλο χώρο, άγνωστο για μένα, τελείως διαφορετικό, κάτασπρο. Σε αυτό το δωμάτιο που ήταν τελείως άδειο, μπορούσα να διακρίνω μόνο ένα παράθυρο. Θυμάμαι ότι μπορούσα να δω τα άστρα στον ουρανό. Ήμουν ανάσκελα ξαπλωμένη σε ένα κρεβάτι και πάρα πολλές φωτεινές σφαίρες κινιόντουσαν γύρω μου με μεγάλη ταχύτητα. Τις έβλεπα έκπληκτη να διαπερνούν το σώμα μου. Πονούσα πάρα πολύ. Αυτό που ζητούσα ήταν να φύγω, δεν άντεχα να πονάω άλλο. Ανασηκώθηκα και βλέπω στο βάθος ένα πλάσμα, μια μορφή. Είχε μεγάλα αμυγδαλωτά μάτια και σκιστά και μακριά ξανθά μαλλιά. Δεν είχα ξαναδεί ποτέ κάτι παρόμοιο. Άρχισε να μου μιλάει και εκεί που φώναζα ένιωσα να μου μιλάει μέσα στο μυαλό μου. Άρχισα να τον καταλαβαίνω τι ήθελε να μου πει. Μου εξηγούσε ότι γνωριζόμασταν από μια παλαιότερη ζωή, ότι τώρα ήμασταν στο διάστημα και ότι το μόνο που θέλουν είναι να προσπαθήσουν να βοηθήσουν τη γη, να τη σώσουν, γιατί καταστρέφεται. Εκείνη τη στιγμή άπλωσε το χέρι του και μου έδωσε ένα αντικείμενο. Κατάλαβα ότι ήταν ένας χάρτης του διαστήματος. Εκτός από τα ουράνια σώματα, αν μπορούμε να τα πούμε έτσι, υπήρχαν και πάρα πολλά σύμβολα, σημειώσεις που εγώ δεν καταλάβαινα καθόλου. Εκείνος μου έδειξε πού ήταν η γη πάνω στο χάρτη και πού βρισκόμασταν εμείς εκείνη τη στιγμή. Παρόλο που έχω προσπαθήσει πάρα πολύ, δεν μπορώ πραγματικά να θυμηθώ τίποτα άλλο. Δεν μπορώ να θυμηθώ πώς γύρισα πίσω, δεν μπορώ να θυμηθώ αν είδα κάποια άλλα όντα σαν κι αυτόν. Είναι μια ιστορία που αν την άκουγα από κάποιον άλλον άνθρωπο, σίγουρα θα τον θεωρούσα τρελό. Όμως, εμένα μου συνέβη.
Ten years ago, a funny thing happened to Kirsan Ilumzhinov.
It was happened in 17th September, I remember in Moscow. It was happened in my apartment.
At the time, he was the elected president of Kalmykia, long before President Putin changed things so that Kalmyks can no longer elect their leader, but simply have one appointed for them instead. On a trip to Moscow, in his apartment in the capital, Ilumzhinov was abducted by aliens.
Yeah. I was taken by my apartment in Moscow to this spaceship, and we went to some star, and after that I asked them, please bring me back, because next day I should come to Kalmykia, to Elista, and go to Ukraine. Yeah, and there's no problem, Kherson, we have time. Yeah.
How much of that experience do you recall? Can you describe to me what actually happened?
They are like people like ours. Yeah, they have the same mind, the same vision, and so on. And I talked with them. Yeah, I understand that we are not alone in this old world. Yeah, we are not unique. Yeah.
I did wonder, but couldn't quite bring myself to ask.
I'm not crazy man, yeah, but after that, when I gave the first interview in Radio Freedom in Russia 5 years ago, thousands, not hundreds, thousands people write a letter to me, calls by phone. Oh, Kherson, you are a politician and you are not afraid to say about it. From the United States, every year more than, it's official statistic, every year more than 4,000 people, who contacted such people.
En abril del 2010, en el Canal 1 de la televisión de Rusia, el político Kirshan Ilyumsinov relató que ese 17 de septiembre, estando en su departamento en Moscú a punto de dormir, escuchó que alguien le hablaba desde el balcón, y fue cuando vio a un ser semitransparente que parecía una criatura casi humana, con un traje espacial amarillo. Kirshan señaló que le habló al alienígena solemnemente y le preguntó por qué no iban a la televisión y se mostraban ante los humanos, a lo que el extraterrestre le respondió que ellos aún no estaban preparados. Las declaraciones de Kirshan Ilyumsinov le dieron la vuelta al mundo, y en el Parlamento de la Federación Rusa, conocido como Duma, las palabras de Ilyumsinov fueron tomadas muy en serio, sobre todo por el diputado Andrei Lebedev, miembro del Comité de Seguridad de la Duma de Rusia, quien solicitó al presidente de la Federación, Dmitry Medvedev, que el político Kirshan Ilyumsinov sea investigado profundamente. El diputado Andrei Lebedev argumenta que Kirshan pudo haber divulgado secretos de Estado a los extraterrestres y que incluso ahora podría estar influenciado por los alienígenas en el gobierno que practica en la República de Kalmykia.
America's First Lady may be grabbing the fashion headlines, but Japan's soon-to-be First Lady is capturing out-of-this-world attention. Miyuki Hatoyama, in an interview on Japanese television, claimed to know actor Tom Cruise. Not in this life, but a previous life. Miyuki Hatoyama, in an interview on Japanese television, claimed to know actor Tom Cruise. Not in this life, but a previous life. Cruise's closest Japanese connection may be his role as a star of The Last Samurai, but Hatoyama says Cruise was Japanese in his previous life, and he'd know her if they met. On the same talk show, Hatoyama says she eats the sun. Like this, she says, saying her husband does it too. Her husband, Yukio Hatoyama, in a stunning political upheaval this week, led his opposition party to overthrow Japan's long-standing ruling party. The new party in charge promises to shift Japan's economic strategy and its relationship with the U.S.-led effort in Afghanistan. Before the dust settled on the election, The eccentric writings of Hatoyama's wife began to surface, like this spiritual cookbook. Mrs. Hatoyama also wrote this book. There's a 2-month waiting list to get it on Amazon. You can't find it in any bookstores in Japan. It's called Very Strange Things I've Encountered. And she says a very strange thing. She says that while she slept, her soul rode on a triangular-shaped UFO and she went to Venus. In case you're wondering, Mrs. Hatoyama says Venus is very beautiful and very green. Mrs. Hatoyama is a new breed of First Lady for Japan, a divorcee and a former actress. She openly says she commands more equality from her husband and is unafraid to express her thoughts.
Definitely refreshing, fun to look at, and fun to learn more about. Because she's so different.
Political analyst Tomohiko Taniguchi believes this UFO talk is harmless for now, but points out she has the ear of the most powerful man in the world's second largest economy.
If she tries to intervene into the political decision-making process, then the people's reaction would be changed dramatically. But at the moment, the nation is in its honeymoon period with this newcomer.
Whether quirky comments from her wife would affect global policy remains to be seen. Political watchers anxiously await for unearthly happenings from Japan's new first family. Kyung La, CNN, Tokyo.
Incidentally, I was a private pilot, so I have some familiarity with the airspace.
It glided over my house, and there was absolutely no noise.
What I thought to be a kind of a boomerang shape.
44, just confirming that all the passengers can see this aircraft.
How would you describe the acceleration?
Probably the speed of light.
I would go ahead and feel the craft, which was warm.
If these extraterrestrials are so highly evolved, how come it is that they only address people named Bubba who are out hunting and fishing?
I'm Fife Symington. In 1997, during my second term as governor of Arizona, I saw something that defied logic and challenged my reality.
I saw one, but I don't know what, it just disappeared.
And the saucer flew right over him and put down 3 little gear and landed out on the dry lake bed.
On Monday, former high-level government employees, military officials, and pilots from all over the world will come together. They'll discuss their own UFO sightings and encounters, and they'll do it at the National Press Club in the nation's capital.
This is when we first saw the UFO. This is when the pilot saw the UFO. This is when the military guys saw the UFO.
Performing speeds and maneuvers significantly in excess of anything that they'd seen military jet aircraft perform.
Physical traces on the ground from the craft were confirmed by the local police.
James Fox helped organize today's UFO-related event in Washington. He directed the film Out of the Blue.
The official position from the Air Force is that they terminated Project Blue Book in 1969, and there have been no official investigations since then.
We have not been hiding anything.
They are simply following orders.
Don't rock the boat. Play it down. Cool it.
Ma'am, I have no reason to believe that they're real.
Thousands of witnesses now, which can confirm that indeed this so. Activities which cannot be related to terrestrial activities.
It's not going to be, as I say, disclosure with a big D. Right. It's going to be disclosure with a small d.
If the government's announced, well, the unidentified objects are real, people would panic?
I cannot say yes, but I cannot say no.
Why do you think the Air Force doesn't want this out?
I wish they would. If the Air Force is listening tonight, why don't you tell us the truth?
There are people who said they saw things, and whenever that happens, they deserve at least an investigation, it seems to me.
I think it's time to open the books. It's time to find out what the truth really is that's out there.
It went at a 45-degree angle away.
We ought to do it really because it's right.
My response was we could land all 40 of our B-2 bombers on the wing of that craft.
We ought to do it because the American people, quite frankly, can handle the truth.
I know what I saw, and I get very upset, and I was wondering why they won't find out what it was.
And we ought to do it because it's the law.